In my previous life, my son had uremia, and I donated my kidney to treat his illness. After the surgery, both my son and wife were diagnosed with HIV. My wife pointed at me angrily. Are you worthy of being a father? How could you do something so inhumane? My son also hit and kicked me. Not only do you earn less money than Uncle Chun, you've also caused me to get sick. Why don't you just die? While I was asleep, they poured boiling oil on me, scalding me to death. But it was actually my wife's affair that transmitted the disease to me. In this life, my son was diagnosed with uremia again, and our tissue typing was successful. I coldly smiled at my wife and said, so what if the typing was successful? Since you both like someone with the surname Chin so much, let him donate a kidney to our son. After saying this, I didn't hesitate and immediately hung up the phone. Dad, I'm thirsty, I want a drink. My son sat beside me, impatience in his voice. I turned my head, looking at my son's thin frame, and frowned. The doctor says you can't drink soda now. It's not good for your health. I gently persuaded him. I'll get you some warm water to drink, okay? I don't want water. My son raised his voice and shouted, I want soda. Who are you to tell me what to do? You're nothing compared to Uncle Chun. He never bosses me around. My heart suddenly contracted. Chen Guangxing, him again. My wife was often away on business trips, so I was basically the one who raised our son. When he was little, my son was sweet and well-behaved, and very close to me, always cuddling up against my legs, asking me to hold him. But ever since my wife and Chen Guangxing started their ambiguous relationship, both her and my son's attitudes toward me changed. My wife began to frequently work overtime, and after coming home, she often compared me to Chen Guangxing, her words always revealing her disdain for me. Look at you. You're over 30 and still just a lousy employee. Chen Guangxing already had his own company before he was 25, and now he manages over 100 people. Last time when Hao Hao transferred to the elementary school in the city center, it was because of his connections and networking that made it happen. What about you? Who do you know that can help this family? Useless good for nothing. I never told my wife that although my parents died early, they left behind substantial assets. The shares and investment dividends my parents left me are enough to keep me comfortable for hundreds of years. And the reason my son's school transfer was successful was because the principal of that elementary school was my father's good friend from his youth. The supposedly wealthy and capable Chen Guangxing she keeps talking about is actually just a manager of a chain store branch, maintaining his image through empty boasting, with no real ability to help her accomplish anything. Indeed, I didn't say anything because I didn't want my wife to think I was making things up, but now, they don't deserve to know the truth. Later, my wife began to frequently take our son to see Chen Guangxing. Under my wife's subtle influence, my son also changed from his once obedient and sensible self to showing only coldness and disdain toward me. How? You can't have soda, but Dad can agree to other requests. I tried to change the subject. Then I want ice cream and cake. No, I firmly refused. What kind of father are you? My son pouted and began crying. Uncle Chun said that when I get better, he'll take me to the amusement park and buy me the newest game console. And you? You just make me drink water. Mom is right, you're useless. I bent down, wanting to pick up my son to comfort him, but he kicked and punched at me, while continuously shouting words like useless, garbage, and so on. Nurses and patients in the hallway gave me sympathetic looks. I couldn't help but sigh, as images of my son from before floated through my mind. Back then, he was still a little child who would stand on tiptoes to pour me water when I was sick, carefully place medicine pills in the palm of my hand, and even share half of his favorite snacks with me. Dad, eat quickly, you'll feel better after eating. The little one would look up at me, his eyes full of concern. But all of this was changed by Chen Guangxing. He never cared about my son's health, only indulging him without restraint. His methods were effective. My son indeed became increasingly attached to him, liked him, and under his influence, grew to dislike me, his biological father. But his boundless permissiveness repeatedly put my son in danger. Chen Guangxing gave milk tea to my son who was lactose intolerant, causing the child to be hospitalized. Yet he carelessly said, drink more to build up resistance, and you won't have so many problems. Chen Guangxing bought all kinds of snacks for Hao Hao every day, letting him eat snacks without restraint and drink beverages as if they were water. This is what caused Hao Hao to develop uremia at such a young age. Despite this, in the eyes of both mother and son, I remained useless mud that couldn't stick to a wall, while Chen Guangxing remained a considerate and capable exceptional man. As I was thinking about this, the phone in my pocket suddenly rang. It was my wife Zhongling calling. Her voice was clearly suppressing anger. We're at the cafe below the World Trade Building. Come quickly with the child. Pushing open the cafe door, I immediately saw Zhongling and Chen Guangxing sitting in the corner. She was smiling as she fed cake into his mouth, their intimacy piercing my eyes. My memory uncontrollably returned to 12 years ago. It was raining heavily that day when I met Zhongling, crying her eyes out at the convenience store entrance. She said she had just broken up with Chun Guangxing. That man had abandoned her for the sake of his career. I handed her a tissue and listened to her cry all night. Later, we fell in love. She said I was honest and reliable, that I would make a good husband. At our wedding, she wore white lace and smiled so beautifully. I thought this would be forever. I'm here. Hao Hao's voice interrupted my memories. He rushed past me like a gust of wind, throwing himself into Zhang Ling's arms without even glancing at me. Mom, Uncle Chun, he called out excitedly. I want a drink, and cake, and ice cream too. Sure. Chun Guangxing smiled as he ruffled his hair. Hao Hao can have whatever he wants. Uncle Chun is so nice. Hao Hao tugged at Chun Guangxing's arm. Unlike Dad, who's not only poor, but also stingy, not even willing to buy me good food. Hao Hao shouldn't talk about your father like that. Chun Guangxing pretended to be understanding. Your father works very hard outside. He must have his own difficulties. Chun Guangxing was always skilled at such two-faced behavior, often subtly criticizing me in front of Zhang Ling and Hao Hao while appearing to praise me. After just a few sentences, he could make them even more dissatisfied with me. Sure enough, Zhang Ling was provoked by him. Difficulties? What difficulties could he have? He's lazy and useless. Zhang Ling sneered. With that job of his paying only 2,000 or 3,000 a month, if we relied on him for support, my son and I would have starved to death hundreds of times by now. Don't worry, I'll do everything I can to help you and your son, Chun Guangxing said with a smile. You're so good, Uncle Chun. Hao Hao leaned against him affectionately. I stood there, watching the scene of this family of three, in perfect harmony, a cold smile involuntarily appearing at the corner of my mouth. In my previous life, on the day the matching results came out, Zhang Ling rarely showed me a smile. The surgery was very successful. I lay in the hospital bed, hearing the doctor say that Hao Hao's rejection reaction was minimal, and felt relieved. Even though the wound hurt terribly, I felt it was worth it. But a few days later, Zhang Ling suddenly burst into my hospital room. You beast! Zhang Ling's shrill voice echoed in the hospital room. You actually infected us with HIV. I looked at her bewildered. What HIV? Stop pretending. She lunged at me, tearing at my hospital gown. The doctor said it was you who infected Hao Hao. I was thunderstruck, turning to look at Hao Hao. He cowered in the corner of the bed, his eyes full of fear and disgust. Dad, how could you? It's not true. I tried to explain, but was utterly defenseless. Only when I saw the ulcers on Zhang Ling's arm did I understand everything. It was her who contracted HIV from cheating with Chun Guangxing, and she infected me. But I didn't want to make such an ugly scene and create childhood trauma for Hao Hao, so I didn't expose her. A month later, Hao Hao was discharged from the hospital. That night, I developed a high fever, and as I tried to open my eyes, I heard Hao Hao's voice. Mom, do we really have to do this? He ruined us, Hao Hao. Zhang Ling's voice was cold as ice. Don't you want revenge? Don't you want a new father? The moment the boiling oil poured over my body, my skin instantly erupted in blood blisters one after another. I writhed in agony on the bed before finally losing my life. I silently clenched my fist. In my previous life, I donated my kidney to my son, only to meet a tragic end. Since you both want so badly to become a real family, I'll step aside. I turned to leave, but Chun Guangxing stood up. Zhang Wo, don't rush off. He wore a fake smile. Since you're here, sit down and let's talk. I coldly stared at him. This man, dressed in a suit and tie, had the air of a successful person. No wonder he could trick this mother and son into being utterly devoted to him. Lin Zhangwo. Zhang Ling also spoke up, her tone full of contempt. Look at the state of you now. No money, no skills. Marrying you was truly my biggest mistake. Hao Hao's illness can't wait. Since you're unwilling to donate your kidney, then pay for a kidney donor. Don't tell me you can't even afford this much. I almost laughed out loud. In my previous life, I didn't hesitate to pay, just so Hao Hao could fully recover and have a bright future. But in the end, what did I get? A pot of hot oil or a body covered in blood blisters? I have no money, I said bluntly. You. Zhang Ling slammed the table as she stood up. Lin Zhangwo, are you even human? Hao Hao is your own son. Look at Chun Guangxing, he's not even related. Yet he treats Hao Hao better than you, his own father. Mom, don't be angry, Hao Hao tugged at her sleeve. He's just a poor wretch. How could he afford my treatment? Uncle Chun will pay for it. Chun Guangxing's expression froze for a moment, but quickly returned to normal. Yes, don't worry about the money. I've already arranged for a kidney donor, just waiting for Hao Hao's surgery. I looked at his pretentious generosity and laughed coldly inside. In my previous life, I had checked. Chun Guangxing's small shop only made a few $100,000 in annual revenue. Where would he get the money to arrange Hao Hao's surgery? Then thank you, CEO Chun. I deliberately raised my voice. I wonder how much CEO Chun has prepared? Is it enough for the surgery fee? Chun Guangxing gave a cold laugh. Money isn't a problem. After all, I can't be as cold-hearted and cold-lunged as Mr. Lin. Uncle Chun is the best. Hao Hao looked at him admiringly, then rolled his eyes at me. Much better than certain useless people. I stood up. Since CEO Chun is so generous, I'll take my leave now. After speaking, I left the coffee shop without looking back. The moment I walked out the door, I heard Hao Hao shouting behind me. Just go. From now on, Uncle Chun will be my father. You useless person. I smiled. To be rid of you all, I couldn't ask for more. After leaving the cafe, I went straight to the hospital to arrange a comprehensive physical examination for myself. A few days later, the test results came back. My health was perfect, with no issues whatsoever. My anxious heart finally relaxed. It seemed that at this point, Zhang Ling hadn't been infected yet. The phone in my pocket suddenly vibrated, and I answered it. Hello, Lin Jiangwo. Something's happened to Hao Hao. Come quickly. By the time I arrived, the child had already been wheeled in. I stood outside the intensive care unit, looking through the glass at the unconscious Hao Hao inside. His face was pale, with tubes inserted all over his body. Zhang Ling was crying devastatingly against the glass, while Chun Guangxing comforted her beside her, though his eyes shifted uneasily. The patient's condition is very critical and needs a kidney transplant urgently, the doctor said seriously. We happen to have a suitable kidney available now. The family should pay the fees quickly so we can arrange surgery for the child as soon as possible. Zhang Ling grabbed his arm. Guangxing, go pay quickly. Chun Guangxing nodded. Okay, I'll go pay right now. I watched his retreating figure, a cold smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. In my previous life, I signed the kidney donation consent form without hesitation and paid for the surgery. In this life, I want to see how much money this man, who claims to love Hao Hao, can come up with. At the payment counter, Chun Guangxing handed a credit card along with the payment form through the window. After swiping the card, the nurse handed it back. I'm sorry, your credit card has insufficient funds. Chun Guangxing was stunned for a moment, then sheepishly took out another card, trying to save face. I forgot that I used all the money on that card for investments. This one will definitely work. Sir, this card has been frozen. The nurse handed it back. Chun Guangxing's expression grew increasingly unpleasant as he kept switching cards, but each one was rejected. The nurse had to remind him. Sir, please step aside and gather enough money before queuing again. Don't delay others who are trying to make payments. The patients and family members waiting in line started talking among themselves. Isn't this just wasting everyone's time? My husband is waiting in the emergency room for me to pay for his surgery. If there's any delay, can you take responsibility? With no choice left, Chun Guangxing stepped aside. I stood at a distance, watching coldly. Chun Guangxing's small shop was already deeply in debt. How could he produce so much money at once? How did it come to this? Chun Guangxing slumped in a chair, muttering to himself. Zhang Ling, seeing Chun Guangxing hadn't returned for so long, hurried over. Guangxing, what's happening? Haven't you paid yet? Chun Guangxing stammered. The company is having some cash flow difficulties lately. Then what about Hao Hao? Zhang Ling screamed. Didn't you say money wasn't a problem? Now you can't even come up with this small amount. I stepped forward, looking at the pathetic state of this cheating couple, feeling indescribably satisfied. Lin Jiangwo. Zhang Ling saw me and grabbed at me like a drowning person catching a lifeline. Please go pay the fee. Hao Hao is your biological son. I looked at her coldly. Didn't you say Chun Guangxing was more capable than me, and you didn't need me? Have you forgotten? A few days ago, you and Hao Hao unilaterally cut ties with me. Zhang Ling was stunned. She hadn't expected me to say this. You beast. She lunged at me, trying to hit me. If anything happens to Hao Hao, I'll haunt you even as a ghost. I grabbed her wrist. Zhang Ling, I can pay the money, but you must promise that after Hao Hao's surgery, we'll divorce and you'll leave with nothing. Zhang Ling glared at me, her chest heaving violently. She didn't want to agree, but with Hao Hao's life hanging by a thread, she had no choice but to consent. After paying the fee as agreed, I turned and left. Behind me came Zhang Ling's hysterical questioning and Chun Guangxing's feeble excuses. I took out my phone and dialed my lawyer. Hello, Attorney Wang. Please prepare a divorce agreement for me. Hao Hao's surgery went very smoothly. Zhang Ling and I also signed the divorce agreement, just waiting for the divorce cooling-off period to pass. Then we can get the divorce certificate. That day, my father's former lawyer, Wang Sheng, suddenly called me, saying he had important matters to discuss with me in person. With nothing to do, I went directly to his company and sat on the sofa in the waiting area browsing documents. Well, isn't this Lin Jiangwo? Are you here to apply for a waiter position? I closed the document and glanced at them calmly. Zhang Ling was dressed in designer clothes, carrying a limited edition bag, with elegant makeup on her face. Chun Guangxing had his hair slicked back, wore a custom-tailored suit, and a luxury watch on his wrist, looking down at me condescendingly. What's wrong? Did I guess correctly? Seeing that I didn't respond, Chen Guangxing casually sat down on the sofa across from me and crossed his legs. If you ask me, you might as well apply for a job at my company. I could even give you a supervisor position so you can earn more and pay off your debts sooner. Zhang Ling made no attempt to hide her contempt for me. A poor wretch like you shouldn't try to act tough. Look at you now. You can't even afford decent clothes, can you? Are you being chased by debt collectors so badly that you don't dare go home? Thankfully, I agreed to divorce you early on. Otherwise, my daughter and I would be suffering along with you. Zhang Ling sat down, clutching Chen Guangxing's arm, quickly distancing herself from me. Lin Jiangwo, you spent that money voluntarily. Don't think about making me help repay even a penny, especially since we're divorced now. I still didn't speak, just coldly watched their performance. Jiangwo, don't take offense at what I'm about to say, Chen Guangxing continued with a seemingly heartfelt tone when he saw I wasn't responding to them. Look at what you've become. Someone like you with no skills. Even if you came to our main store to sweep floors, nobody would hire you. Zhang Ling chimed in as well. Just look at Guangxing. He's now the boss of a big company, and any single deal is worth millions. What about you? Besides putting on airs, what else can you do? Useless. I remained silent, only looking down at my watch. Chen Guangxing was provoked by my calm demeanor and no longer bothered to hide his contempt, stepping forward to push me. Lin Jiangwo, a poor wretch like you doesn't even have the right to approach the store manager. If you know what's good for you, get out of here now. Stop making a spectacle of yourself. Just then, the elevator door opened with a ding. Manager Wang walked in surrounded by a group of people. Chen Guangxing's eyes lit up, and he immediately stood up, his face full of smiles as he went to greet him. Director Wang, you're finally here. I'm Chen Guangxing. I arranged to discuss cooperation with you today. But Wang acted as if he didn't see him, directly walked past him, quickly approaching me instead, and enthusiastically extended his hand. So Lin, why did you come personally? Didn't we agree that I would pick you up? Chen Guangxing's smile instantly froze on his face, and Zhang Ling was also stunned, unconsciously letting go of Chen Guangxing's arm. I stood up and shook hands with Manager Wang, speaking in a calm tone. I wasn't busy, so I came by myself. Lin Director? Chen Guangxing stuttered, his face turning deathly pale. Manager Wang, have you mistaken him for someone else? He's Lin Jiangwo, just a poor nobody. How could he possibly be some Director Lin? Manager Wang frowned slightly, his tone displeased. Chen Guangxing, don't speak nonsense in front of Director Lin, and besides, I told you I'm not available today. Why did you come? The color instantly drained from Chen Guangxing's face, and Zhang Ling also stared at me with wide eyes, unable to believe what she was seeing. I crossed my arms and looked at Chen Guangxing with a half-smile. Mr. Chen, what were you saying just now? That I should know my place and get out? Chen Guangxing's forehead broke out in sweat as he tried to stutter an explanation, while Zhang Ling also panicked. Quick. Ly releasing Chen Guangxing's arm and forcing a smile. Jiangwo, so you're actually... I sneered, directly interrupting both of them. Uncle Wang, please ask these two to leave. Wang nodded and gave his assistant a look. Chen Guangxing's face turned ashen, and he wanted to say something else, but was directly stopped by the assistant. Zhang Ling looked flustered, wanting to come forward and hold me back, but I coldly avoided her. The two left dejectedly in their defeat. Wang handed me the assets my father had left for me. Your father specifically instructed me before his death that the shares of the main company should only be given to you after you and Zhang Ling separated. I recalled how, when Zhang Ling and I were not yet married, my father strongly opposed the match, as if he had already seen through the outcome of this relationship. But at that time, I was young and impetuous, with my heart and eyes full of longing and devotion to love, unable to listen to any advice. I defied his wishes and resolutely married Zhang Ling, thinking it was the beginning of happiness. But all the various things that happened later proved that father's judgment was accurate. Those once sweet moments and promises, looking back now, were nothing but a joke. I was too foolish, unable to judge people correctly. I pushed open the door, and Zhang Ling was sitting on the sofa, holding a stack of documents, with a gloomy expression. Seeing me come in, she suddenly stood up and threw the documents in front of me. Lin Jiangwo, what do you mean? She questioned shrilly. If it weren't for Guangxing investigating your background for me, I would still be kept in the dark. You actually have money, yet you've been hiding it from me all along. And now you want to dismiss me with that little bit? You're dreaming. I glanced at the documents on the floor, which were divorce agreements sent by the lawyer, and a detailed file about me, clearly stating that I am the sole legal heir to the Lin family. You personally promised to leave with nothing at the hospital back then, but I still left you the large apartment in the city center and the luxury items in your closet. I've been more than generous enough, I replied with furrowed brows. You're full of shit, Zhang Ling screamed. The apartment is nothing compared to your shares, and you have the nerve to mention those fakes? Those counterfeits are worthless. Your father left you a company worth billions, and Hao Hao is your own flesh and blood. He rightfully deserves to inherit the Lin family company. If you want me to agree to a divorce, you must transfer all your company shares to Hao Hao. Looking at her hysterical state, I could only find it laughable. When she didn't know my true identity, she despised me completely, openly flirting with other men, and even making our son call someone else daddy. Now that she knows my identity, she wants to use our past relationship and so-called blood ties to extract a fortune from me. Zhongling, have you ever wondered, if they were counterfeits, why would the boutique sales associates be so attentive to you? Why could you always get new releases before anyone else? Besides, I've known for a long time that Hao Hao isn't my biological child. He's Chun Guangxing's son, isn't he? As she listened to my words, Zhongling's face gradually turned pale. How did you? She mumbled, her voice trembling so much it was barely audible. How did I know? I sneered, my eyes full of sarcasm and disappointment. I had a paternity test done right after the child was born, but I loved you and was willing to take the blame. Now, I'm not willing anymore. Zhongling, someone like you doesn't deserve to get anything from me. I'm going to make sure you truly leave with nothing. After saying this, I ignored Zhongling's struggles and threw her out the door. The next morning, I was awakened by crying from downstairs. Opening the window, I saw Zhongling sitting at the entrance of the community with Hao Hao in her arms, crying and shouting desperately. Lin Jiangwo, you heartless man, abandoning your wife and child. Heaven won't forgive you. Her voice was sharp and piercing, causing passing neighbors to turn and stare. Hao Hao was held in her arms, his little face pale. He had just undergone surgery recently and was still very weak, yet Zhongling forcibly dragged him here to put on an act. I watched this scene coldly, feeling absolutely nothing. If he doesn't want to acknowledge me, why should I care about someone else's son? Lin Jiangwo, come out. Zhongling continued crying. You changed once you got money, even abandoning your own son. Are you still human? The surrounding neighbors began to point and gossip. I heard he's very wealthy, yet he drove his wife and child out of the home. This kind of man is truly despicable. Exactly. I heard the child is actually a boy from his mistress, and he tricked his wife into raising him for 8 or 9 years. Seeing the rumors spreading more and more outlandishly among the people around, I had no choice but to get dressed and go to the entrance of the residential area. Zhongling, what exactly do you want? I squeezed into the crowd of onlookers and frowned. I made everything very clear that day. Leave now. I won't leave. Zhongling threw a tantrum. This is my son's house. Why shouldn't I be allowed to stay? I don't believe there's no justice in this world. Mom, Hao Hao reached out and tugged at Zhongling's clothes. My stomach hurts. Why are you causing trouble now? I'll take you back to the hospital later. Zhongling slapped Hao Hao's hand away, folded her arms, and looked at me. Anyway, I won't leave today unless you give me several million in compensation. I snorted lightly. You're dreaming. You, ZH. Ongling was about to say something when Hao Hao suddenly went weak in the knees and fainted. Zhongling's eyes lit up, immediately picked up Hao Hao, sat down on the ground, and began wailing while beating her chest. My poor suffering son, how did you end up with? I turned around directly and shouted. Everyone look. She keeps using her child as leverage, and now that the child has fainted, this mother isn't rushing him to the hospital, but is still completely focused on getting money from me. Everyone isn't stupid. They can all see whether she truly cares about the child or is just putting on an act here for money. Hearing this, the crowd quickly changed their tune. If you ask me, this mother is the bigger problem. I'm their neighbor, and I can testify that this child was raised single-handedly by his father. The mother never cared at all. No wonder she doesn't care about him. Turns out she never took care of him for even a day. Seeing her scheme exposed, Zhongling glared at me viciously, then fled in disgrace carrying Hao Hao. To maintain my good father image, I followed after them. In the hospital room, Hao Hao's face looked even paler than last time. Chun Guangxing and Zhongling stood nearby, their faces showing little worry but rather calculation. Lin Jiangwo, Zhongling grabbed my arm. Hao Hao is in the hospital again. This time it's a rejection reaction. The doctor says he needs surgery immediately, and it will cost 1 million yuan. You're his biological father. You must pay this money. I shook off her hand and said coldly, I remember I paid for the last surgery. Didn't you promise to take good care of him? How did problems arise again? Chun Guangxing interrupted. How can you blame us? Hao Hao is just a child. What's wrong with wanting some snacks? Besides, taking too much medicine isn't good for the body either. So you indulged him to eat whatever he wanted and skip medication doses? I interrupted him, my tone ice cold. Is this how you take care of a patient? Zhongling retorted self-righteously. If the child wants to eat something, let him eat. That's still better than someone who never shows his face. Lin Jiangwo, don't change the subject. Hurry up and pay. I sneered. I have money, but I won't give it to you. You. Zhongling trembled with anger. You heartless beast. Hao Hao is your biological son. Biological son? I looked at her mockingly. Haven't you always said Chen Guangxing is closer to him than his biological father? What happened? Now that you're out of money, you suddenly remember I'm his real father? Chen Guangxing's expression changed, and he wanted to say something, but I interrupted him. I won't pay, I said firmly. You'll have to figure it out yourselves. After saying this, I turned and left. Behind me came Zhang Ling's hysterical crying and shouting. Lin Jiangwo, may you die a terrible death. I'll expose why. Oh, you online. I'll ruin your reputation. I ignored her threats and walked straight out of the hospital. However, this wasn't the end of the matter. A few days later, my phone was bombarded with calls from various unknown numbers, and when I answered, I was met with a barrage of insults. You beast who abandoned your wife and child. You're not even willing to save your own son. Are you even human? Go to hell. Scum. I opened social media to find that Zhang Ling had posted a long article accusing me of abandoning my wife and child and refusing to help in a life-or-death situation. The comments section was filled with abuse, with some threatening to dox me, and others who had already thoroughly exposed my personal information. Looking at the vicious comments on the screen, the hateful faces of that couple appeared before my eyes. I could almost see everything they had meticulously planned, just to completely destroy me with public opinion. I silently clenched my fist. It's okay. I would soon let them know they had messed with the wrong person. I picked up my phone and called Lawyer Wang. We can begin now. A few days later, a video went viral online. I sat at the desk, facing the screen, and calmly said, regarding the recent online accusations against me, I have a few points to clarify. First, I turned on the projector. Here are the chat records of Zhang Ling's affair with Chen Guangxing, as well as our divorce agreement. In the video, I clarified each accusation I had faced these days and presented compelling evidence to prove the truth of what I was saying. Finally, I said coldly, I suspect that the store operated by Chen Guangxing is involved in tax evasion and fraudulent operations. I have submitted relevant evidence to the appropriate authorities, and I believe there will be results in the coming days. After the video was published, public opinion instantly reversed. Zhang Ling and Chen Guangxing became public enemies, condemned by everyone. Zhang Ling has always liked to make unreasonable arguments, and this time was no exception. On the day Chen Guangxing was taken away, Zhang Ling was throwing a tantrum outside my building. Lin Jiangwo, you beast. Slandering Guangxing, you'll come to no good end, she cried hysterically, attracting a crowd of onlookers. I stood on the balcony, coldly watching her performance, not even bothering to go down and deal with her. Zhang Ling, I called out to her in a mocking tone. Chen Guangxing is suspected of tax evasion and has been taken away by the police. Rather than making a scene here, you should think about how to save him. You're lying. Zhang Ling screamed. How could Guangxing possibly evade taxes? You must have framed him. I smirked coldly, not bothering to argue with her anymore. Just then, several police cars came roaring in. Upon seeing this, Zhang Ling immediately rushed forward. Office. RS, you've come at the perfect time. Lin Jiangwo has falsely accused my husband. You should arrest him right away. The police glanced at her and took out an arrest warrant. You're Zhang Ling, right? Chen Guangxing is suspected of tax evasion, and we have solid evidence. Please cooperate with our investigation. Zhang Ling froze, looking at the arrest warrant in disbelief. This can't be possible. How could Guangxing? The police ignored her reaction and directly escorted her to the police car. I watched as the police car drove away, casually closing the window. Those who commit evil deeds will eventually face the consequences. A few days later, the court began proceedings for Chen Guangxing's tax evasion case. I attended as the whistleblower to testify. In the courtroom, Chen Guangxing's face was ashen, no longer showing his former arrogance. Zhang Ling sat in the audience, her eyes hollow, as if she had aged 10 years overnight. The judge announced the verdict. Defendant Chen Guangxing, guilty of tax evasion, sentenced to 10 years imprisonment and fined 5 million yuan. Chen Guangxing slumped in the defendant's seat, while Zhang Ling covered her face and sobbed uncontrollably. After the trial ended, Zhang Ling stopped me. Jiangwo, she abandoned her usual domineering manner, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. I was wrong. Would you give me another chance? Hao is still young. He needs a complete family. I looked at her coldly. Zhang Ling, you can't be stupid enough to think that saying a few soft words would make everything from the past go away, can you? Looking straight into her eyes, I said each word deliberately. Ending up like this is entirely your own doing. Zhang Ling's eyes turned bloodshot as she glared at me furiously. Lin Jiangwo, I curse you to die a horrible death. Even as a ghost, I won't let you go. Hearing her outcry, I suddenly curled my lips with malicious pleasure. Zhang Ling, for the sake of our marriage, let me give you one more piece of news. Chen Guangxing has always liked to fool around outside. He might have contracted some disease. I suggest you take Hao to get checked up as well. She froze, then screamed hysterically. You're talking nonsense. He's not that kind of person. Don't try to drive a wedge between us. I ignored her and walked away. A few days later, I went to the hospital to visit Wang's wife who had just given birth, but saw Zhang Ling in the waiting area. Zhang Ling sat in a chair, looking haggard with vacant eyes. The doctor walked up to Zhang Ling and said gravely, "Ms. Zhang, the test results are back. You've been infected with HIV, and the situation is very serious." "What about Hao Hao?" Zhang Ling asked. "He's infected too," the doctor sighed. "He was probably infected through blood transmission while being cared for." I sneered, "This is karma. Even in this new life, EY couldn't escape this fate." Zhang Ling looked up and saw me standing in the distance. "Zhang Wo." She came over, her voice hoarse as she spoke. "I was wrong." I cut her off. "What's the use of saying this now?" She lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. "I've harmed Hao Hao. I shouldn't have trusted Chen Guangxing." I looked at her coldly. "Zhang Ling, did you think I didn't know? When you were with Chen Guangxing, you knew he had HIV, but for money, you still chose him." She trembled all over, looking at me in disbelief. "You? How did you know?" I gave a cold laugh. "Zhang Ling, I am no longer the Lin Jiangwo who you could manipulate." She collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. "Jiangwo, I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? Hao Hao needs a father." The same old rhetoric. I watched her phony performance and felt nothing but disgust. "Zhang Ling," I chuckled softly, "do you think I would still believe you?" She paused for a moment, then suddenly jumped up, screaming as she clawed at my collar. "Lin Jiangwo, I'm going to kill you. I'll make you die with me." This woman had gone completely mad. I pushed her away and walked off with a frown. A few days later, Hao Hao passed away. News spread that Chen Guangxing had contracted HIV in prison. He was released on medical parole due to his deteriorating condition, but he didn't have much time left. Zhang Ling's condition also worsened, and she was admitted to the intensive care unit. Half a month later, Zhang Ling died alone and in despair in the intensive care unit, with no one by her side or seeing her one last time before she passed away. I stood in my newly purchased villa, looking at the bustling city night view, and took a deep breath. In this life, I finally escaped from the shadows of the past. Those who had hurt me all received their due.